everyone, my name is Maria Toka and today I'm going to share with you 12 biggest graphic design trends in 2024. Obviously, I'm not saying that you have to follow trends to be a good designer, especially if you have your own style, your own vision. That's totally fine to ignore them. However, I'm pretty sure that you're going to benefit from it a lot if you're just aware of them. Because trends don't come out of nowhere. They always sort of reflect what's going on in society right now. At least you can spot some directions of where this is going and why, and I think it's super interesting to analyze. And also it's just a good way to show your clients that you're up to date, that you pay attention to what's happening, and maybe you can come across as more professional, who knows. So it doesn't hurt, does it? So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. And the first major trend we're going to see in 2024 is 3D design. This is quite a big one, and we've seen a lot of it over the last few years, but now it's becoming more and more prominent, and we simply can't ignore that anymore, especially because 3D effects have become more and more accessible these days. Now we can create a really high quality, super realistic 3D effect in programs like Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator. Even with just these two programs, you can do a lot, so just imagine what you can do with 3D programs like Blender and Cinema 4D. This is just mind-blowing, isn't it? The second trend is quite predictable. It's retro, and I think there wasn't a year in history of graphic design where we haven't seen this nostalgia trend in one way or another. But this year I would divide this trend into two sub-trends. The first one is called vintage minimalism. As you know, being inspired by past doesn't necessarily mean to blindly repeat that. So this is a modern twist on the vintage aesthetics, where we only take the best timeless elements such as serif fonts, warm color palettes, halftones, grainy textures, hand-drawn characters, and so on. But at the same time, we keep the layout clean and sophisticated. And the second sub-trend, I would say, is 70s nostalgia, which is characterized by earthy tones, simple geometric shapes, floral and groovy patterns. This can be a reaction to the development of AI and embracing the human touch to designs, which is really important nowadays. And speaking of AI, this is the third trend I found, and it wasn't hard to find it because obviously we can't ignore this as well. Yeah, it's generative art. This trend is very experimental because you can never expect any particular result. Definitely brings some futuristic vibes, and today with tools like Midjourney, DALL-E, Adobe Firefly and others, it's more or less accessible for everyone, and I'm pretty sure this is just the beginning, and we're going to see more of these trends evolving in the next few years. The fourth trend is experimental typography. This is a very broad term which includes custom type, which celebrates individuality and making each letter form unique. And sometimes tweaking just one or two elements of the composition is enough, or it can go much further with customizing the entire layout. This trend is also about adding the type some extra character, personality, making it more expressive, so it will also convey emotions and personality rather than just information. And it's often made by hand, and I think this is another response to technology and digitized world. Again, we need some human touch to designs. The next trend I would characterize as anti-design. This is probably one of my personal favorite ones. I'm sure you've heard this word before, anti-design, but we're gonna see a lot of it in 2024. It's all about that unfinished and sort of careless look. It's about breaking all the possible rules of graphic design and going against the norm, pushing the boundaries. Excessively stretched fonts, ignoring the grid, using as many fonts as possible, organizing the elements in seemingly random way. These are just some examples of these trends, but you can easily add to this anything that goes beyond the conventions. So just feel free to experiment and you'll be on trend. And the sixth trend is maximalism. We've been gradually moving towards this over the last few years, and now it's finally taken its own place. And some of you may confuse it with anti-design, but it doesn't necessarily have to break the norm. It's just about filling in the composition with elements, leaving very little white space in between. It can be ordered and organized around the grid, or it can be messy and fully chaotic. It doesn't matter. The amount and the size of the shapes also doesn't matter that much, as long as most of the space of the page is taken. So this is the most important feature. And the seventh trend is neo-brutalism. Despite its seemingly organized and put together look and following grids, it also has that raw and unfinished effect. Sometimes it may come across as too strict and cold because it focuses only on utilitarian side of design, stripping away all the decorations. Ignoring the styling altogether can go as far as using only default computer fonts like Times New Roman and Helvetica and anything like that. It's usually based on modular elements, rectangular shapes, because it's more functional. Also, the elements are often repeated. The color scheme is either restrained and monochromatic, or it can be based on one vivid color, which is rather a modern twist on this original brutalist style. And it definitely conveys the sense of power and strong energy. The next trend is also one of my favorites. It's collage. In terms of the layout, it's the opposite of brutalism because it completely disregards the grid. However, it doesn't necessarily focus on breaking the rules. I mean, it does break the rules, but this is not the main point. The main emphasis here is mixing all sorts of media in one design. This is another great way to express individuality and feel the full creative freedom. That's also how you can bring some nostalgic vibes to your design if you add analog pieces to your collage, as if they were cut and pasted from an old vintage magazine. Blending various textures and materials helps create that raw authenticity. There's also a more specific element of this trend, and it's using stickers. I didn't put it as a separate trend because technically it's still a collage. We've seen this trend for a while already, especially on Instagram and TikTok, and it's gonna continue thriving in 2024, developing more interesting variations. And the more realistic and textured look they have, the more nostalgia it brings. In addition, they always bring a burst of joy and playful vibes. The ninth trend is doodles and hand-drawn illustrations. This one also continues bringing some playfulness and creativity to your design, deriving from retro styles. Logo mascots are going to rise in popularity in 2024. Hand-drawn custom brand illustrations feel more unique and authentic than standard stock imagery. This is again celebrating that much-needed human touch to our designs. Even if it's only small elements like doodles and scribbles. And I feel like it's a perfect time to let you know that I have a Scribbles pack myself in my assets shop. It has over 560 PNG scribble elements of different materials like pen, pencil, crayon, ink, etc. Plus it has 5 letter sets of hand-drawn letters. I use this pack myself all the time in my posters, and I think it's a great way how you can implement this doodles trend into your designs. The next trend is geometric patterns. Sometimes they can be mixed with the 70s trend that I already mentioned, sometimes not, but the common feature is simplicity. They're often based around strict vertical or horizontal lines. However, the bold, vivid color scheme makes it rather funky and playful. These patterns are often used in maximalist design just to fill in the space and also bring more character. The next trend is pixelated type. This is probably the opposite of nostalgic designs. Conversely, it's about embracing the new technology and creating an aesthetic around it. Even though we've seen this trend before, in 2024 it goes beyond just imitating some retro video games aesthetic. Now it's becoming more elaborate with various ways of pixelating letters, not only of simple default fonts, but also quite decorative and complex ones. Apart from typography, this trend can also be applied to any other elements of the layout, creating unique futuristic patterns. In some way, it can even become a grid itself, just a bit more modern version of it. And the last trend I'd like to share with you is serif fonts. Again, this is not a super new thing that you've never seen before, but it's definitely going to continue growing. This is more about celebrating timeless design and embracing authenticity and sophistication. When we see the rise of new technologies such as AI and 3D design, there's always an element of resistance to it and seeking comfort in something familiar and traditional. And in case with the serifs, it can also lead to a very interesting mix of the opposite styles when we combine the modern and the classic. So as you can see, some of these trends have a lot in common, which means that they probably have the same origins. I've identified 3 main directions here. So the first one is being playful with your design. The second is bold and powerful. And the third one is nostalgic. Let me know in the comments down below which ones of these trends are your favorite ones, the least favorite ones, and you will never use it ever. Yeah, just let me know all your thoughts down below. I'm really curious to know. And that was all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and see you guys next time. Bye!